right, traders, this is Blake Morrow. You are listening to the Morning Edge webinar. I want to welcome you all back. We're going to get started with our analysis this morning, and let's grab the bias chart really quick. Like I said, there's no economic data today, so we do have some central bank speak. We have Polis is speaking at 10:05 a.m. Eastern. He is speaking at he's participating in a panel discussion at the Bloomberg America's Monetary Summit in New York. Also, RBA Governor Stevens is speaking at 12:30 Eastern. So he's going to be speaking with or at the same event. And then we have later on tonight we have the monetary policy minutes from the RBA as well. So, but there's no economic data here in the U.S. today. And by the way, this week is it's not a huge week of data. A lot of PMIs later on in the week, which is going to be mostly I would say probably the bigger market movers, especially in Europe, right? But for the U.S., it's kind of a slow week. Regarding a slow week as far as data goes. All right, but let's go into the charts because there may not be anything today, but we're approaching some pretty key levels. So here's the euro dollar, and you can see where the euro dollar is actually approaching pretty critical support here. Now this is a channel support that we had drawn since last week. You guys might have recalled it, and we didn't have this here. You guys might have remembered we had the 618 retracement. 108.50 is being a really key level of resistance. After Friday's move, we saw the rejection, then we started to bounce back up again. And as we were bouncing back up again, it was late in the day on Friday. I shorted I'm trying to think where I shorted it because I already forget where my entry was. All I know is I'm like, ooh, I got a nice profit, and I took profits, right? And I knew that we were near channel support, and I wasn't even looking at my cost average price. I was more or less looking at where we were at today, okay? And all I know is we were coming back, and I'm like, that 618 is going to hold, and I was thinking that on Friday, and then I remember shorting it at like 108.05 or something like that, and it ran past my entry point. I'm like, well, it's still not going to break above here. And then I closed it this morning. So anyway, because I knew we were near support. Now, can the euro go lower than this? Yes, it can. Absolutely it can. But we are on support regardless. But we got to figure out where more support might be, okay? Because this is the euro as we see it right now. We are like exactly mid-range. Whoops, I don't want to lose that. Hold on. Okay, let's see, like right there. All right, so move that over there just to keep it. This is such a hold on. I want to keep these in a certain order. All right. Well, regardless, I'll mess with it a little bit later. I'm kind of not getting the results I want at the moment. I'll have to mess with this in a bit. But what you'll notice here in the euro is where here's the upper end of the range. There's the lower end of the range. We're mid-range right now. Think about the ranges tightening. Okay, so which would look something like this probably. The range is probably tightening a little bit like this now, okay? And again, we're smack dab in the middle of the range, so don't get too married one direction or the other. Try to sell or buy the extremes. If we can get up towards 109, I'll be a seller, and if we get down towards 106, I'll probably be a buyer. Or at least start considering it. Okay, but here you got to find these, these ranges that we're in, or these patterns that we're in, and try to play them. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, maybe I'll get on the long side down here. You can. You just got to manage where your stops are going to be, because like Rick in the chat room this morning, he asked, is this a head and shoulder pattern? And I'm like, it might be. The only problem that I see here, and let's get rid of this line. The only problem that I see here is we're really, if this is the neckline, we're kind of breaking through, but we're also on just trend line support. So we're going to have to start clearing new lows, and that might expose a move lower here towards 106 and change. But we have some work to do. I mean, you can see how we're already starting to find support down here. Let's do this, because it's a tough read. I'll be the first one to admit, it's a tough read at these levels. Let me get rid of these smaller. That's not what I want. There we go. Move that. Okay. Let's take a fib from here to here. Okay. So this comes in at 107.08, which is the 618 roughly. 107, basically 107.10. Okay, the breakout point there. 107.10 should offer pretty good support today. If that breaks, then we know that we're coming out of the channel. Okay, if that makes sense. So if we clear this, we clear that support. Oops. Then we know we're coming out of that. We're coming out of this channel. We might be able to target down here towards 106 and maybe 106 and then maybe the round number. But we really have to break through that 107.10 to get the downside accelerating. Okay, I would think. And where's upside resistance? Well, upside resistance, as far as I can tell, it's gonna be right through here. By the time we get up there, about 107.75. You can see how I'm very not convinced at the moment where we're at. Oh, go Kiwi. Kiwi's at lows of the day. Dollar yen's at highs. Canadian's at highs. Oh, look at the dollar. Getting a little bit of a boost here. I like it. Okay. Let's go over to the cable. All right, so here's the pound dollar. Now, the pound, this is first of all, this is actually a decent chart. You know what? Man, this pound looks like it's going to crack a lacquer too. First of all, we had that false breakout. False breakout to the downside, false breakout to the upside. You can see we left a long wick. Now, here's your hourly. It's a head and shoulder pattern, folks. That's a head and shoulder pattern on a false breakout. So Now, since the cable is prone to false breakouts, you got to be very careful here, of course. It's that low, 149.10, right there, and that low right there. It's your next level support. Spike high, spike low. That low comes in at 148.80. Okay. It's got a head and shoulder pattern. Now we are range bound though. When I say range bound, the reason why I say that is go back to the daily chart to confirm. False break low, false break high. We're range bound here. Looks like a head and shoulder pattern. Looks like we're testing the neckline right now. Well, that would also suggest that the resistance is really key here at 149.80. Because remember, 149.80, it's not because it was important overnight, but it was important for the last several weeks, if you guys don't recall. Okay, see all that resistance through here? So 149.80 will be really key resistance on the way back up. This cable actually looks like it's going to break down though. I'm tempted to short it. I'm very tempted to short it. I'm tempted to short it and put a stop above 149.80. I have not done it. I have not shorted the cable yet. I'm thinking about it. Okay. I'll come back to that. Let's go over to the Swissy. Swissy's been really strong. So here's a Swissy. We were testing previous support, which is basically 96 cents. I mean, we're right up against resistance there. Yeah, 96 cents for the Swissy. And by the way, I need to look at something too. Let me stop here for a second. Well, let me look at the Euro Swiss really quick. Because the Swiss seems a little weak today. So if the Euro Swiss, hold on, I'm gonna sneeze. Stand by. I don't want to blow your speakers out, so hold on. I thought I was gonna sneeze, but it was a false alarm there. Okay, so I noticed that the Swiss is pretty weak. And here's the Euro Swiss. Look at that hammer. So anyway, I'm watching the Swiss carefully just because I noticed the Swiss is so weak. If the Euro Swiss takes out the 103 level, I don't know if it's the actual bottom is in, but I think that we could squeeze up another point. So we're going to have to keep an eye on this one. All right, so here's the Euro, here's the dollar Swiss, and right up against resistance. Support is going to be right here. You can see that hourly wick, 95.60. Let's go over the yen. Now the dollar yen, one of the reasons why it's been been so strong overnight, um, and you can see this hourly move from 1850 back up to 119, is stocks are up significantly. I mean, you got the Dow futures that are up nearly 100 points. So we've had a nice rally. We've had a nice rally from the lows. I just, I don't know how excited I'd be about, the long side up here. I'm short. Just everybody, probably is already aware with the dollar yen. I'm short the dollar yen. I've been short the dollar yen for quite some time. But I'm talking about for you guys that maybe don't have a position in it, that, from an intraday bias is still very choppy. And like I said, I don't know how excited I'd be about buying up here, considering that every time you get a rally like this, like a 50 pip rally, it just fades anyway. You see it's happened almost every time. Okay, so and the daily candle's trying to create a hammer, but I mean, that's probably looked like that so many different times before it's just rolled right back over anyway. Okay, well, since it is so messy, I'm just going to make the assumption that, while we're below 119.50, it's going to really struggle back to the upside. And then 118.50 is probably going to offer us pretty good support. And it's obviously in the dollar yen, it's really choppy, and you're not going to get a lot of directional movement until equities get somewhat directional. So I'll just put 118.50. 119.50. I think we've been riding range down for the dollar yen since like January. No joke. All right, let's go over the Canadian. Now the Canadian is getting a nice boost, and you can see the one thing about the dollar Canadian is that massive reversal we saw on Friday. Huge hammer was created, long wick. We closed the week above the 127% extension. I think the dollar Canadian has the potential of squeezing higher, especially if we can break Friday's highs. So let's delete all this junk here. Obviously, I drew, and what you just saw me delete, I drew from Friday. I drew something like, oh, it's probably going to be a nice long if it gets down here to 122. Well, it dropped below 122 overnight, but has turned around and is around like we expected. So what we're going to have to mark is we're going to have to mark the high here. If for some reason we take out 122.70, that's probably going to start spiking up the dollar Canadian. We were in a bearish trend for just a couple of days, but I don't know, with the dollar so range bound, I don't think I would get sucked into this. And look at crude. Wow, crude's really rolling over right now. And now if crude's going to roll over, that's just going to boost the dollar Canadian. Do you guys see crude? I mean, look at crude right now. This is the hourly chart. Look at the last 2 hours. So here's the U.S. dollar Canadian. Hell, we could even have an inverted head and shoulder pattern here. You know, I mean, it's possible. Anyway, I think we'd have to break above here just to get the bulls moving. Support is going to be that low, 121.80. All right, let's see if we can. We'll do the Kiwi really quick. Here's the Kiwi. Now I shorted the Kiwi on Friday. I'm still short. I shorted it at 95. I'm just sitting in it right now. I'm tempted to short that cable. Not going to yet, but tempted. Anyway, the thing that I was looking at on Friday was the false break above the highs. You can see right here. False breakout above the highs that closed below 77 cents. And even with that news out of China over the weekend, we gapped up higher, but we're still just rolling back over again. We can't even sustain gains. Now, with the Kiwi dollar, that high from Friday will have to be taken out in order for us to turn bullish. So 77.40 is huge resistance. Okay. And unless we break above that 77.40, we are very much staying in a range environment. Okay. Support. Probably move back below these lows right here. $57, $60. So 60 really. 76, 76.60 the support. And I'm assuming if we break that, we're going to start, moving lower, probably a little bit more aggressively here. So if we can break through this support, which is located right there. Okay. All right, guys. When I come back, we're going to do the Aussie and the dollar index. So don't go anywhere. I'll be back in a few moments. All right, traders, this is Blake Morrow. You are listening to the Morning Edge webinar. I want to welcome you all back. So we have, we're going to take, we just looked at the Kiwi. We're going to take a look at the Aussie, get the dollar index. Then I'm going to answer some of your questions. You know what I just realized? I can remove this. After getting our great news about Amir and his family on Friday, I did. How many of you heard Amir on Friday? You had an opportunity to hear Amir on Friday. Oh, some of you guys didn't? Okay. You know what? before I remove all that, let me finish up the analysis and we'll talk about it. Okay. So I just realized that he was on at noon Eastern on Friday, and many of you could not be here. So stand by. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's go over this. It's great stuff. Anyway, so here's the Aussie dollar. Okay, so with the Aussie, now it's the Aussie's getting kind of messy. You can see that the charts are obviously very messy at this point. Let's delete a few things. I'm gonna right click, drawing, remove all lines for current symbol. Okay. All right. First things first. Let's do this. Okay. So you can see the slight down channel that we've got in the Aussie. Pretty clear, pretty clean. Okay. Let's go back to the 4-hour chart. Now this trend line I think we need to pay very close attention to. Okay. 161% extension. We couldn't overcome 78.50. So now remember, this is following the Chinese reserve ratio cut, reserve ratio requirement cut. I mean, we've already filled the gap. I mean, the Aussie's actually down on the day now. It's down 11 pips on the day. So resistance is 78.50. Period. End of story. I mean, that's well, actually, we'll write down 78.40, which is Friday's highs. And now support is this low, 77.57. So we're just going to call it 77.55. We're almost there. We want to break that here while we're sitting here. And let's go really quick, and we're in a range here. Let's go talk about the dollar index. Now, you guys might recall this from Friday. Inverted head and shoulder pattern. Okay, so inverted head and shoulder pattern should carry us all the way into, back up towards 99 cents, I guess. Should. It's tempting not to short the cable. I still want to short the cable here. Hold on really fast, though, before we do that. So that resistance is going to come up here at, let's call it 98.25. That's 98.75. I'm sorry, 97.75. Okay, so there's your bias chart, and no, I've not shorted the cable yet. Thinking about it, but I haven't done it yet.